rabbit starts. We're going to try to save some equipment tonight. Okay. You also must be in your lineup spot before the heat race or the feature goes out, or you'll tag the tail. We can't wait on you guys. We got a lot of running to do on a Wednesday night. We want to get you guys and the fans home. So please. In the heat race, no. Heat race, you sit under the yellow. You have to stay with the feature, that's fine. And don't go back out on the track under the green flag conditions. Guys, feature, yeah. And when you come out, of course, you just tag the tail. That's no problem. 12 lap heat race for late model. 10 for the other two divisions. Consi will be 15 laps.
Race for the late models come out onto the track in the number 1 Cochran car out of Cranberry Township, Pennsylvania. That is Lynn Geisler. In the 88, that is Brian Wyant. And in the second row, the 17V of Bill Van Meter. The number 1 of Jeremy Miller, the number 1M, back in the third row. In the number 15 of Shane Beagle. On the outside of him, the 11L of Jeff Ferguson, the 97 of Jeff Thomas, the 19 of Paul Wilmoth Jr., and the number 5 of Lou Bradish. 12 laps for our heat race action. The Summer Sizzler 75 as Geisler and Wyatt bring them down the back straightaway. Geisler and Wyatt. And Miller in the second row. The flagman has the green flag at hand, and it will be Geisler down into turn number 1. Wyatt looks to the outside. Jeremy Miller coming out in the third spot. Shane Beagle looking to the inside, but coming up through the 19 of Paul Wilmoth Jr. taking over that fourth spot. Have Jeff Ferguson down in turn number 4. The yellow flag coming out. As we'll go back to a complete restart, did not get a full lap in. front straight garage to get some quarter panel pulled away from the right rear tire. One more time around. Vanson will bring up the tail. Down into 3 and 4. Lynn Geisler hits the button and will lead down into turn number 1. Wyatt looks to the outside. Jeremy Miller looks to the inside of Wyatt, trying to take over that second spot. But here comes Paul Wilmot Jr. on the inside of Jeff Thomas, trying to take over the fourth spot as he took over fourth. Into third, Wilmoth is on a move as Lynn Geisler stretches out a huge lead down the back straightaway. Wilmoth looks to the inside of Jeremy Miller as Thomas takes over the fourth spot from Wyatt. Wilmoth looks to the inside of Jeremy Miller coming out of turn number 2 down the back straightaway. Side by side into 3 and 4. A slight advantage for Wilmoth as Wilmoth takes over the second spot, but Miller fights back. Meanwhile, Geisler using that middle groove around this 38-mile track. Miller holding on to the second spot as Shane Beagle high in turn number 4. The yellow flag coming out. Beagle going into the pits. Beagle climbing Mikey Johnson. Miller looking to the highest side of Geisler, but right on his tail is Wilmoth. As Wyatt and Mikey Johnson battle for that fifth spot. Bill Van Meter has a left rear flat tire as he slows down the back straightaway. Miller looking to the high side of Geisler, but the yellow flag coming out for Van Meter. Slow in 3 and 4 with that flat left rear tire. Jeremy Miller, Paul Wilmot Jr., and Jeff Thomas. Wilmoth on the inside of Miller down into 1 and 2. Miller fights back on the high side. Meanwhile, Wyatt and Mikey Johnson battling for fifth side by side. Miller a little bit loose coming out of that fourth turn, giving Paul Wilmot Jr. just enough momentum to get by for the second spot, but Jeff Thomas looks underneath Jeremy Miller for the third spot, side by side into 3 and 4. Miller kissing a guardrail as Thomas looks to the inside of Paul Wilmot Jr. Geisler stretching out a huge lead down the back straightaway. Thomas right on Wilmoth's deck lid. 9 laps down with 9 laps down. Geisler comfortably in the middle groove. Now Wilmoth Jr. second spot, Jeff Thomas and Jeremy Miller. 2 laps to go. 2 laps to go. The white flag of the air for Lynn Geisler. Paul Wilmot Jr. holding on to second, Jeff Thomas in third. Cranberry Township's Lynn Geisler and the number 1 Cochran Rocket picking up the first heat race win. Paul Wilmot Jr. the second spot. Jeff number 25, Mike Benedum. Inside row number 2, the 32 of Gary Tonkery. Roland Nolan Dalton out of Morgantown, West Virginia, the D2. The 64 of Drew Cotells in the third row. The outside in the Blantoik 0 of Rodney Combs. Rob King in the K1. On the outside of him in the red number 1 Ace Metalworks car, Scott Miles. Chuck Kleiss in the number 5, and bringing up the tail in the 2, Brian Laraway. Green flag out down into turn number 1. It is Mike Benedum holding on, but Sammy Style looks to the inside. Nolan Dalton in the third spot. Style to the inside of Benedum. Down into turn number 1. Nolan Dalton looking to the inside of Sammy Style for that second spot. He pulls even down the back straightaway into turn number 3. Dalton taking over the second spot, and Gary Tonkery trying to take over, but we've got a yellow flag out for Brian Laraway over in turn number 2. Race number 2. Mike Benedum hits the button. Nice jump. Dalton taking over that second spot from Sammy Stiles, as Rodney Combs working on Gary Tonkery for 4th. Dalton sideways. We've got Dalton, Tonkery, and I believe that's Sammy Stiles down there too. Laraway spinning to avoid the carnage. And Drew Cotellis of the 64 also kind of spinning to avoid the wreckage over in turn number 4, is Nolan Dalton getting a little bit loose, and the pack behind him had absolutely nowhere to go. As looks like Sammy's wheels pointing way too much to the right. The green flag is in the air, and it will be Benedum down into turn number 1. Some metal being crinkled in the back of the pack with Nolan Dalton and Brian Laraway. Benedum holding on to that lead as Combs dove into the 4th turn, tried to look to the inside. As the front 2 pull away from 3rd place Scott Miles. Combs again dives into 4, but slides way high. Nolan Dalton working his way back up through the pack, trying to get around Rob King. Mike Benedum stretching out his lead over Rodney Combs, Scott Miles in the 3rd spot. Nolan Dalton still working on King, as Kleiss right ahead of him. Dalton to the outside takes over that 5th spot. Dalton to the inside of Kleiss, side by side, working on him for the 4th spot. Benedum stretching out his lead as Dalton gets by Kleiss for 4th. on Rodney Combs for second spot, as we've got Brian Laraway loop the number 2 down here on the front straightaway as a yellow flag coming out. Brenda Trimble, would you please report to the souvenir stand? Brenda Trimble, Mike Benedum, Rodney Combs, Scott Miles, Nolan Dalton, Chuck Kleiss as the green flag waves. Mike Benedum try to stretch out his lead. Rodney Combs in the second spot. Scott Miles and Nolan Dalton, the top 4. Chuck Kleiss in 5th, and the transfer spot, Rob King in 6th. Front 3 cars pulling away from 4th spot, Nolan Dalton. Two laps to go for Mike Benedum, Rodney Combs, Scott Miles, Nolan Dalton, Chuck Kleiss, and Rob King, the transfer cars. The white flag in the air for the Bristol Bullet, Mike Benedum. Rodney Combs holding on to that second spot. Then it is Scott Miles. Nolan Dalton as Combs looks to the inside, but it will be Mike Benedum at the stripe. Rodney Combs, Scott Miles, Nolan Dalton, Chuck Kleiss, Rob King. Brian Laraway. And Drew Cotellis bringing up the tail. Heat race number 2 as Mike Benedum, Rodney Combs, Scott Miles, Nolan Dalton, and Chuck Kleiss and Rob King will advance to the feature. Heat race number 3. Mel Mennick Jr. in the 75 and the 7 Ace Metalworks car. That is Chad McDougall. The 00H of Chuck Harper. On the outside of him, out of Pennsboro, West Virginia, the 81 of MT Hall. Rodney Schweitzer in the 84. Ron Slavic in the 01S. The 83R of Scott Rhodes. Bob Gordon is in the 31. Believe that is Andy Freeze in the 82 on the outside of Rhodes. Heat race number 3 for the late models. The top 6 advance. Holding on to that lead down the back straightaway. Chuck Harper a little bit loose. MT Hall trying to make his way up through the pack. Look like Scott Rhodes is showing some right rear quarter panel damage on that 83R. As Harper looks to the inside of Mennick down the front straightaway. MT Hall taking over third from McDougall. And have Rodney Schweitzer front end damage on that car. Scott Rhodes stopping on the back straightaway. The yellow flag is coming out. Leading them down into turns 3 and 4. The green flag is waving. Chuck Harper looks to the inside of Medic. Side by side down into turn 1. Harper with a slight advantage on the inside. Takes over the lead. Medic on the high side. MT Hall looking to the inside. Andy Freeze looping the 82 over in turn number 4, over turn number 2 rather, bringing out the yellow flag. Gordon and Andy Freeze. Again, Harper looks to the inside, side by side down into turn 1. It is Harper taking over the lead. Mennick tries to fight back on the inside, but Harper pulls away down the back straightaway. MT Hall looks to the inside as Mennick slides high, coming out of the 4th turn, taking over the 2nd spot. Andy Freeze taking over 5th from Ron Slavic as Slavic fights back to the inside. Chuck Harper stretching out his lead. Chuck Harper has the J-Rods vending 00 on cruise, pulling away from the field as MT Hall and Mel Mennick Jr. dueling for the 2nd spot. Chad McDougall in 4th, and Andy Freeze, Ron Slavic, and Bob Gordon. At the cross flags, Chuck Harper nearly a full straightaway lead over MC Hall and Mel Mennick. Looks to the inside of MT, but MT slams the door. Now Mennick peeked to the outside, but fell in behind MT down into 1 and 2. MT pulled out to a little bit of a lead down the back straightaway. Chuck Harper, a full straightaway lead. MT Hall in the 2nd spot. Then Mel Mennick Jr. Chad McDougall. Have Andy Freeze looping the 82 over between 1 and 2, bringing out the yellow flag. Freeze and Bob Gordon dueling for that transfer spot. Freeze holds it for the moment. Harper starting to stretch out his lead again over MT Hall in the 2nd spot. Mel Mennick in 3rd. Chad McDougall in the 4th spot as McDougall begins to close in on Mennick with 2 laps to go. 2 laps to go for Chuck Harper. Harper sliding a little bit high there in turn number 4 under the white flag lap. MT Hall in the 2nd spot. Mel Mennick in 3rd. Don't believe McDougall's got time enough to catch Mennick. The checkerboard is in the air for Chuck Harper. MT Hall finishes in 2nd. Mel Mennick, Chad McDougall, Ron Slavic, then Andy Freeze and Bob Gordon. As the top 6 transfer into the feature, Chuck Harper, MT Hall, Mel Medic Jr., Chad McDougall, Ron Slavic, and Andy Freeze. The nice red digger, Sean Davis, then Louis Krushansky in the 23. So that is Wayne Jordan in the 6J, and bringing up the tail of Craig Borrego. Perkins slides up the track, but holds on to the lead as the gold digger, Sean Davis, moves through the pack, takes over the second spot. Louis Krushansky. Green flag up as Ray Perkins will lead the field down into turn one, but Rick Smith on the high side. Rick Smith down the back straightaway. The gold digger on the inside, 3 wide down the front straightaway. Davis, Jordan, and Perkins, but Jordan comes out in second, but he slides high. Still 3 wide coming out of the second turn. Smith sliding high in turn 4. Jordan holds on to second. Davis and Perkins right here with Jordan as Jordan high coming out of the second turn. As Denny Borrego goes into the pits. Sean Davis working on Wayne Jordan for second, but Jordan fights back on the outside. Davis slipping under Jordan for second, coming out of the second turn, down the back straightaway into 3. Smith holding the high line. Davis trying to reel him in. At the cross flags, Rick Smith, Sean Davis, Wayne Jordan. Smith down into 3 and 4. Smith leading down the back straightaway. I believe Sean Davis may be closing in a bit. He's closing in, going down into turn number 1 as they've pulled away from the pack. Wayne Jordan in the third spot. Smith a little high and loose coming out of the second turn, allowed Davis to catch up with him. Davis on the inside, 2 laps to go. As the white flag is in the air, Rick Smith on the outside. Sean Davis looks to the inside. Side by side down into turn number 1. But Smith pulls away in between the turns as Sean ducks in behind him. Coming down for the checkered flag, it will be Sean Davis at the line. Sean Davis just nipping Rick at the line. Chad McClellan leading down in the turn, but Kenny Riddle looking to the inside. McClellan digging, coming out of the fourth turn as Kugel looks to the inside of Riddle, going into one. Jim Dandy fighting with J.R. Nolan for that fourth spot. Chad McClellan. Whoa. Kenny Riddle losing to Jim Dandy. Looking to the inside of McClellan. Jim Dandy looking to the inside of J.R. Nolan, fighting for that third spot as Dandy takes it over, but Nolan fights back. Meanwhile, Kugel still fights with McClellan at the front of the pack. Kugel at the cross flags looks to the inside of McClellan, down into 1 and 2. They're side by side. Jim Dandy in the third spot, Nolan in the fourth spot, Riddle in fifth, and Metzger rounding out the field. Side by side, McClellan and Kugel. Kugel on the inside, McClellan on the outside, down into turn one. McClellan's just a little advantage down the back straightaway into 3 and 4, but here comes Jim Dandy joining in on the fun. Two laps to go for Chad McClellan. With the white flag of the air, the front 3 cars close nose to tail. Kugel looks to the inside of McClellan, down into turn 1. All the while, Jim Dandy right behind him. The stripe, it will be McClellan, Kugel, and Jim Dandy, J.R. Nolan, Kenny Riddle, and Jeff Metzger bringing up the tail. Side, Tremble and Milburn in row 2. Groves and Glessner in the last row, and looks like Frost having some troubles. Side, Baylor on the outside. Tremble down into turn 1. Baylor in the second spot. Milburn and Groves touch in turns 1 and 2. takes the car down in turn number 4. Baylor and Milburn. Down the front straightaway, it will be Quinn Milburn down into turn 1. Milburn sliding high, coming out of the 4th turn. Dave Groves taking over the 2nd spot. As Milburn three-wheeling it down in the 4th turn. Groves holding on to 2nd. Glessner in the 3rd spot, and then Mark Baylor bringing up the rear. Quinn Milburn lifting that left front wheel up off the ground. Dave Groves trying to dig in, close in on Milburn. Down into 3 and 4 as Milburn lifts that wheel again. Groves look to the inside. Groves closing in on Milburn as he looks to the inside again. At the cross flags, they're side by side, but Milburn fights back into 1. Groves pulls underneath him down into 1 and 2. They're side by side coming out of the 2nd turn. Groves down into 3 and 4, looks to the inside. Milburn tries to fight back. They're side by side down into 1. They're still side by side. Down the back straightaway, Milburn just slightly ahead, but Groves pulls even in the middle of the turn. Down the front straightaway, they're side by side. Quinn just slightly ahead coming out of that turn, but Dave pulls in. 2 laps to go. As we've got 2 laps to go, Groves at the stripe that time around. As Doug Glessner pulling off into the pits. Groves down the back straightaway, just a slight advantage into 3 and 4. Groves looking at the white flag. Slips in behind down the back straightaway as he looks to the inside, but at the stripe it will be Dave Groves, Quinn Milburn, and Mark Baylor. The 2J. Somebody lost a wheel. Mikey Johnson lost a wheel on that 2J. Mikey out of Imperial, Pennsylvania, has the tire rolling down into the infield. Side, Brian Laraway on the outside, Rodney Schweitzer on the inside of row number 2 as the green flag is out. Wyatt down into turn 1. stretching out the lead down the back straightaway as Schweitzer looks underneath Laraway for the second spot. Sammy Style moves into fourth, but Scott Rhodes moves up around him into the fourth spot. Sammy Style setting up in turn number 2. Yellow flag coming out. You need to run up here to the porch behind the concession stand right in front of the souvenir shop to get your 50-50 ticket. Your last chance. You may go home with a nice little chunk of change. Last call for the 50-50. Come up to the porch in front of the Catellis at the 64, then Bill Van Meter in the 17. The green flag is out as Schweitzer looks to the inside of Wyatt. Looping to 15 down on the front straightaway as the yellow flag coming out. The top 5, the top 4 will advance. Back straightaway. It is Wyatt, Schweitzer, and Rhodes pulling away from the back. Laraway in the 4th spot, the transfer spot, but fighting to get back up. Mikey Johnson trying to get into that transfer spot. Takes over the 5th spot. Now he works on Laraway for 4th. Schweitzer looking to the inside of Wyatt. Coming out of the second turn, but Wyatt shuts the door. Johnson got around Laraway, but it is Schweitzer taking over the front spot with Wyatt. But we've got a car down in turn number 4. Believe that is Sammy. No, that's not Sammy Styles. In the 2J. The green flag waves as Scott Rhodes looks underneath Wyatt for that second spot. Side by side down the back straightaway, Wyatt and Rhodes. As Mikey Johnson tries to make it 3 wide down the front straightaway. Rhodes takes over second. Johnson trying to follow suit, but Wyatt fights back. Meanwhile, Schweitzer pulls out to about a 4-car length lead. Johnson underneath Wyatt for the 3rd spot. Wyatt now in that 4th and all-important transfer spot. Shane Beagle in the 5th spot. Mikey Johnson at the halfway point. Pulls up on Scott Rhodes on the inside and slides underneath him in turn 1 and 2 to take over second. He now sets his sights on Rodney Schweitzer. Schweitzer, Johnson, Rhodes, and Wyatt, the top 4. the green flag waves. Johnson looks to the inside of Schweitzer, but once again, Johnson is one lap down. Scott Rhodes is in the 83 in the second spot. Schweitzer down the back straightaway. Rhodes in the second spot. Then Wyant and Bill Van Meter now moves into fourth. 2 laps to go. 2 laps to go. Rhodes in the second spot. Then in third will be Wyatt, and fourth Van Meter, as Mike Johnson just got his lap back on the final lap.
Green is out, and immediately Kiesling charges into the lead going into that first turn. Out of the second turn down the back chute, your running order, and look at Schaefer make a charge to the inside of Kiesling. But Kiesling in the 123 takes it right back in. Scott Herring, the 28 machine, makes a move to the inside of Schaefer. Bid for the lead to the inside of Kiesling. It's Herring down the back chute, taking over that point position. Through 1 and 2 as the field stretches out a little bit. Your leader, Scott Herring, and Schaefer now looks to the inside of Kiesling. Schaefer gets a little squirrely there coming out of 4. Your leader, Scott Herring, followed by Jeff Kiesling in the 123. And Kiesling loses the handle between 1 and 2, allowing Herring to open up a big lead. Markleysburg driver Scott Herring, your leader. Through 1 and 2 down the back chute, Herring, your leader, followed by Schaefer, Bendishaw, Redshaw, and Zuffall. We're at the halfway point with your leader, Scott Herring. Now Bendishaw and Redshaw both moving up to make a challenge for that second spot, but Schaefer holds on for now. Herring with with a really big lead. Field lengthening out now. A little bit of smoke from that B7 of Jim Bendishaw. Your running order, Scott Herring in the 28, Jim Schaefer in the 30, John Redshaw in the 62, Jim Bendishaw in the B7, and Dale Zuffall in the 5Z. Jim Bendishaw on the B7 goes pit side. 2 laps to go. 2 laps remaining in this Buzzo Music and Vending Heat Race event for the Pure Stocks here at Roaring Knob Raceway Park. Your leader, Scott Herring, in the 2nd spot. Jim Schaefer, John Redshaw in the 3rd spot. The 5Z of Dale Ziffall in 4th, and Greg Hogger in the 5th spot. 1 lap remaining. Checkered flag in hand on the flag stand. And your winner, Scott Herring of Markleysburg, Pennsylvania, followed by Jim Schaefer, John Redshaw, Dale Zuffall, and Greg Hogger, your top 5. Not a good start. We're gonna try that one again, fans. Green is out. Bell on the point, heading into that first turn. Down the back chute, Bell, your leader, but Scott Spade makes a bid to the inside in the 76S. As Bell slides a little high, Spade takes over that point position coming down the front chute. Spade and Bell, 1 and 2. Now Vocek looks to the inside of Bell for that 2nd spot. Your leader, Scott Spade. Vocek now in 2nd, Bell 3rd. Fama, 4th position. And Jim Byers in the 5th spot. Out of 2 down the back chute, Spade your leader. Vocek, the 75 machine, in 2nd. Bell, the number 6 Mark Martin lookalike, in 3rd. Fama, the 55, in 4th. And Jim Byers, the number 36. And Bell gets crossed up coming out of that 4th turn. In the 6, and Jim Byer in the 36. The green is out and we're racing again. As Scott Vocek looks to the inside of Scott Spade going down the back chute. Pulls even side by side through 3 and 4. Spade slides high and loses that position to Vocek. Your leader now, the 75 of Scott Vocek. Down the back chute, your running order, the 75 of Vocek, 76S of Spade, 55 of Spama, 49 of Dale Wilt, and the 20 of Lloyd Frazier, your top 5. Now Medved moves to the inside of Frazier, trying for that 5th spot. Here comes Jim Byers up to join the fight. Medved noses ahead just a little. As Frazier slides high through 4 and loses 2 spots. And again, your leader, Scott Vocek. Tail enders at the back get a little squirrely out of 2. Half a straightaway lead now for Scott Vocek. Same distance between 2nd and 3rd for Scott Spade and John Fama. Dale Wilt, 4th place car, and Bob Medved in 5th. making a bid for that 5th spot, looks to the outside down the back chute with 2 laps to go in this heat race event for the Buzzo Music and Vending Pure Stocks. 2 laps to go, your running order: Vocek, Spade, Fama, Wilt, and Byers now in control of that 5th spot. Caution on the Raceway. 7 God Vocek in the 75 leads him to the line. And the field stretches out, and it's Vocek, Spade, Fama, Wilt, and Byers, your top 5. With 2 laps to go. And Byers looks to the outside of Wilt down the front chute. Takes the high side. And takes that 4th spot away. White flag for Scott Vocek in the 75 machine. Now Byers looking to the inside of John Fama in a bid for the 3rd spot. Checkered flag in hand, your winner Scott Vocek, followed by Scott Spade, Jim Byers, John Fama, and Dale Wilt, your top 5.
Bullet in the Bobby Lakes Motorsports 25. That is Mike Benedum. The J-Rod's Vending 00H of Chuck Harper. On the outside of him in the 19, the hottest driver in the tri-state area this year. 12 feature wins, Paul Wilmoth Jr. in the 19. Ready to go green. Harper and Wilmoth Jr. in the 2nd row. Geisler and Benedum lead them to the stripe, and at the drop of the green flag, it will be Lynn Geisler down the front straightaway. As the yellow flag coming out, the green still out with Lynn Geisler. Mike Benedum with a piece of Paul Wilmoth Jr.'s nose piece wedged into the rear end of the car. Chuck Harper, Paul Wilmoth Jr., and M.T. Hall. See the yellow flag out. Looked over off of turn number 1 and seen the yellow light in the pits. That's where I got the yellow just a few minutes ago. The green flag back up as Geisler leads the train down the front straightaway. Down into turn number 1. Mike Benedum looks to the inside of Geisler, but Geisler shuts the door. Again, Benedum looks to the inside. Again, Geisler will shut the door. Scott Miles working on Jeff Thomas for that 5th spot. Paul Wilmoth Jr. closing in on Chuck Harper. As we've got a couple of cars down in turns 1 and 2, believe that is Jeff Ferguson, and believe that is Rob King as well. Wilmoth looks to the outside of Harper for that 3rd spot, while Benedum again looks underneath Geisler. Wilmoth now looks to the inside of Harper for that third spot down the back straightaway. Geisler pulls out a little bit of a lead, but Benedum pulls up on him coming out of the fourth turn. Scott Rhodes moved up to the high side as making his way up through the field. Again, the battle for third heats up with Harper and Wilmoth side by side. Benedum gets the nose up to the quarter panel of Geisler, but Geisler pulls away down the front straightaway. Scott Miles looking to the inside of Jeff Thomas for that fifth spot. Scott Rhodes continues to move his way up through the field, has made it up into 11th, up into the 10th spot. Back up front, Paul Wilmot Jr. gets around Chuck Harper for third as Scott Miles gets around Jeff Thomas for that fifth spot. Geisler moving in on Rob King to put him a lap down. As he puts Rob a lap down, Benedum gets caught up behind him a little bit. Geisler puts a couple of car lengths in between him. 19. As Wilmot Jr. closing in on the front duo has made it into that third spot. As we have a car pulled up here in turn number 4, but can't see the number. Yellow flag coming out. Hey, that was Lou Bradish. Back straightaway, Lynn Geisler. Geisler, Benedum, Wilmoth, Harper, and Miles down the back straightaway. Miles takes a look to the inside of Harper for the fourth spot. Down on the inside, trying to make his way into the top 5, Jeff Thomas. On the high side, Scott Rhodes moves around Thomas for the 6th spot. Harper and Miles. Nolan Dalton slow going into turn 3. The yellow flag coming out for Nolan. Stop down between turns 3 and 4. And have no idea what turns are what. Rhodes, the green flag of the air. Scott Rhodes goes to the high side around Jeff Thomas, taking over that 6th spot as he now will close in on Scott Miles. Rhodes and Chuck Harper seem to be running that high groove. Miles taking over 4th from Harper as Rhodes still in that high groove, got up in a loose stuff. He lost a couple of spots there as Thomas got around him. Scott Miles now works on Paul Wilmot Jr. for the 3rd spot as Rhodes takes back 5th from Thomas. As we've got a car over, hit the wall in turn number 4. The red flag should come out. We have a car flipped. He climbed the guardrail going into turns 3 and 4, and I believe he's out of the car. That's Andy Freeze. Nice to see Andy out of the car. To bring the crinkled car of Andy Freeze to the pits. Once again, glad to see Andy get out of the car under his own power. The green flag back in the air. Lynn Geisler will lead them down the front straightaway. Geisler, Benedum, Wilmoth, Miles, and Harper, the top 5. Rhodes again goes to the high side as he works his way around Thomas. Now tries Harper down into 3 and 4 as Benedum look to the inside of Geisler. Miles on the inside of Wilmoth taking over that 3rd spot. Rhodes has made it into 5th. Again, Benedum on the inside of Geisler. Side by side coming out of the turn, but Geisler pulls away down into the 1st turn. Miles is closing in on Benedum. Scott Rhodes looks to the high side of Paul Wilmoth as he gets around Wilmoth and takes over the 4th spot. Miles is the next victim for Scott Rhodes. Rhodes hooked up in that top groove, takes over the 3rd spot. Rhodes started 19th, moves his way up around Benedum for the 2nd spot. He now closes in on Lynn Geisler for the lead. On the high side, it's Rhodes. Down the back straightaway, Rhodes takes the lead from Lynn Geisler. From 19th to the front. Rhodes down into turn 1. Geisler fights back on the inside. Down into 3 and 4. Geisler looks to the inside. Benedum holding on to 3rd. Miles in the 4th spot. Wilmoth Jr. in 5th. Closing in on the lap traffic may hinder Rhodes a little bit as we have Bob Gordon in his high groove. As Wilmoth went around Scott Miles for the 4th spot. Wilmoth has moved up into the high groove. Rhodes making his way through the lap traffic, leaving Geisler. To work his way around the lap car of Rob King. Rhodes now has MT Hall between the two as Rhodes stretches out his lead. Scott Rhodes continues to lead. Lynn Geisler got around the lap car of MT Hall. Mike Benedum in the 3rd spot. 4th is Paul Wilmoth Jr. Miles in the 5th spot. Then Chuck Harper. Benedum now has to fight his way around the lap cars of MT Hall and Rob King. Meanwhile, back up front, Scott Rhodes puts Bill Van Meter a lap down. Looking at a big pack of cars in front of him down the back straightaway. Lynn Geisler back about a half a straightaway, getting his way around Kevin Wendt. Rhodes working the high side, trying to get around Mike Johnson as Rodney Schweitzer in front of him. They're double file in front of Rhodes, but Geisler still back behind Bill Van Meter. Rhodes and Schweitzer made contact going into turn 3. Rhodes had to let up. They're still double file in front of him as Rhodes now gets around Schweitzer and Slavic. Now works on Chad McDougall. Geisler back in the fray behind all those lap cars. Mike Benedum in the third spot, then Paul Wilmot Jr. and Scott Miles. Going into turns 3 and 4. He has now 5 lap cars between he and Geisler as the yellow flag coming out. And believe that is the halfway mark for the fuel stop. That is the halfway mark for the fuel stop. Scott Rhodes made his way from 19th to 1st in 20 laps. Lap number 20, Rhodes took over the point. Out. As Melmenic, I believe, yes, Melmenic come back out onto the track in the 75, as did Rob King. Gordon are lap cars ahead of the third place car of Paul Wilmoth Jr. As the green flag comes back out, Scott Rhodes down into turn 1. Schweitzer kissing the wall. As Paul Wilmot Jr. trying to close in on Mike Benedum. Scott Miles looking to the inside of Paul Wilmot Jr. Trying to take over that 4th spot. Into turn 4, trying to get around Benedum. Wilmot takes over that 3rd spot, but Benedum fights back. Wilmot pulls away down the back straightaway. Wilmot trying to slip through the lap cars of Van Meter and leave out his coattails right ahead of him. As Scott Rhodes is simply checked out. The lap cars of Chad McDougall and Ron Slavic still between leader Rhodes as we have Van Meter into the turn one wall. Minnie just barely missing him. Yellow flag to Rhodes. Lynn Geisler, Paul Wilmot Jr., Mike Benedum, Scott Miles, the top five. Miles looks to the inside of Benedum, but Benedum right there on something wrong with Lynn Geisler's car. Geisler slowing down, Wilmoth into second, Benedum into third. Geisler slow, dropping spots left and right. Scott Rhodes checking out from the field again. Something seriously wrong with Geisler as he finally gets up into the high groove as he will dive into the pits. Geisler had been running second. Paul Wilmot Jr. now in the second spot, but it is Mike Benedum on the inside taking the second spot away. Benedum down the back straightaway in the second spot. Wilmoth on the high side. Stretching out his lead to a full straightaway as he's down into 3 and 4. Mike Benedum in the second spot, trying to get around the line. We have MT Hall. I believe it was MT Hall and Chuck Kleiss getting together on the back straightaway as MT sliding down into the infield. Lead, Mike Benedum now in the second spot, then Paul Wilmot Jr., Scott Miles. The green flag back out. Gets around the lap car of Ron Slavic. As now, see if he can reel in Scott Rhodes. Scott Miles looking underneath Paul Wilmot Jr. for that third spot. Stretching out his lead a little bit over Mike Benedum. Miles again looks underneath Wilmoth for the third spot, but Wilmoth shuts the door. We got a car slow in the front straightaway. That's the 84 of Rodney Schweitzer. Schweitzer going into the pits. The latest retiree. Mike Benedum. Paul Wilmot Jr. trying to get around the lap car of Ron Slavic down the back straightaway. Slavic slowing down the front straightaway, but does look like maybe he got out of the groove. Now he's back into the gas as both Wilmoth and Miles get around him. Rob King just diving into the pits as Rhodes trying to put Van Meter another lap down. Rhodes has put 2 more lap cars between himself and Benedum. Third spot, Paul Wilmot Jr. has moved out to about a 5-car length advantage over Scott Miles. Yellow flag coming out. It's Benedum, Wilmoth, Miles, and Miller. Mike Benedum looks to the inside of Scott Rhodes, but Rhodes on the high side fights back as Scott Miles now looks to the inside of Paul Wilmoth for third. Benedum and Rhodes side by side, but Rhodes pulls ahead down the front straightaway. Benedum looks to the inside again, side by side out of turn number 2. But Rhodes pulls ahead down into 3 and 4. Again, Benedum dives to the inside. Miles dives to the inside of Paul Wilmot Jr. for third as Jeremy Miller closes in on those. Scott Rhodes trying to put a couple of car lengths between himself and second Mike Benedum, but Miles continues to work on Paul Wilmoth. Jeremy Miller right there. Should Wilmoth and Miles make a mistake, Miller looks to the high side of Scott Miles. 3 wide down the back straightaway. Wilmoth on the outside, Miller in the middle, Miles on the inside. Down the front straightaway, it's Miller and Wilmoth for the third spot. Side by side into turn 1 and 2. Miller goes around Wilmoth for third. Scott Rhodes stretches out his lead a little bit over Mike Benedum. Again, 3 wide out of the 4th turn. It's Miller, Wilmoth, and Miles. 3rd, 4th, and 5th. We've got cars over in turn number 1 and 2. Have Jeff Ferguson, Chuck Kleiss, and Melmenick collect each other in turn 2. At 11 lap dash, Scott Rhodes, Mike Benedum, Jeremy Miller, Paul Wilmot Jr., and Scott Miles. The green flag is back out. As we have Slavic, McDougal, and Kevin Wyatt, or Brian Wyatt, rather. into 3 and 4. The green flag in hand. As it will be Rhodes down into turn 1. Benedum looks to the inside. But Rhodes pulls out to about a 3-car length lead down the back straightaway. Scott Miles working on Paul Willis for that 4th spot. Rhodes stretching out the lead a little bit. Jeremy Miller working on Benedum for the 2nd spot. Scott Rhodes down the back straightaway out to about a 6-car length lead. Still riding in that high groove. Jeremy Miller looks to the inside of Mike Benedum. Side by side, coming out of the 2nd turn, Benedum gets a little better bite and pulls out to a 1/2-car length lead down into 3 and 4. Slavic just diving into the pits out of the race. Scott Rhodes setting comfortably in that top groove. Scott Rhodes shows the way of the Summer Sizzler 75. Jeremy Miller looks to the inside of Mike Benedum. Jeremy Miller and Mike Benedum make contact with 2 laps to go.
And Scotty Rhodes takes the win over Jeremy Miller. Mike Benedum finished 3rd. Scott Miles 4th.
As Jimmy Henry presenting the check to Scott. Well, Scott, boy, you just got on a rail and just shot up through the field.
Yeah, I'll tell you, those McQuarrie tires and that Rhodes motor are really hooked up.
Now, is this the biggest paying race in your career?
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Well, congratulations. I know you want to thank some of your sponsors, but it was a thrill to watch you just work your way right up through traffic flawlessly.
Actually, the car was really good. I mean, probably looked harder than it was. I mean, I never drove that easy of a race. The car was just great.
So it was pretty easy for you, really?
Yeah, a lot of stress, but it was easy.
Well, congratulations. to Scott Rhodes out of Somerset. You want to thank some of your sponsors?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Rhodes Performance, Lias Tire, McQuarrie Racing Tire, Rocket Chassis, Total Mobility, and Black Specialty Service.
Congratulations. Nice round of applause for Scott Rhodes. Get a couple of words from the Bristol Bullet, Mike Benedum. Mike, you told me in the pits a little bit earlier you was pretty confident going into tonight. Had a nice run going, didn't you?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I just tried to conserve my tires the whole race, and then when I went to turn it on at the end, well, the motor got a little hot and started boiling water out, but I'll take it.
Great run for Mike Benedum, finishing in the second spot. You just hooking up with Bobby just a few weeks ago. Looks like this team may go somewhere in the next few weeks.
Yeah, if anybody's interested in helping us, we greatly appreciate it, but I think we got a good team here and we can do some things.
Congratulations on a nice second place run, Mike, and want to thank some of your sponsors.
Well, I'd like to thank Bobby Lake and Dream Racing Engines, of course, Mom and Dad for helping me do this, and Yowler's Mobile Home Sales, and
AC's Car Care.
AC's Car Care, and the guys that did all the work on this car, like John Utter and Bobby Lake and Lynn Davison. They all have some credit here too.
All right. Congratulations, Mike. Of Quint Milburn, Wayne Jordan in the 6J, Jim Dandy in the 70 at the 71. Brent Trimble. The 1A is Craig Perigo. Bring them to the line. It will be Sean Davis down into turn one. Groves looking to the inside. Takes over that second spot as Rick Smith hard into 3 and 4, making it 3 wide coming out of the turn. Larry Kugel takes over third. Fourth turn. We've got a parking lot coming out of the fourth turn. G. As the flagman drops the green flag, Sean Davis leads down into one. Metzger on the embankment. Down in Jim Dandy, bring them to the stripe. Brings them to the line. Dave Groves, Larry Kugel, Rick Smith, and Jim Dandy, the top 5. Doug Glessner taking over the 6th spot from Chad McClellan. And Dave Groves, Larry Kugel, Jim Dandy, and Rick Smith, the top 5. Jim Dandy looking to the inside of Kugel. Battling for the 3rd spot as Doug Glesner trying to work on Rick Smith for the 5th slot. Mark Baylor looping the 83 over in turn number 4. Back of the air, Sean Davis, Dave Groves, Jim Dandy, Larry Kugel, Rick Smith still the top 5. Sean Davis moving into that high groove, coming down the front straightaway. Jim Dandy closing in on Dave Groves for the 2nd spot. Dandy looks to the high side. Sean Davis continues to set the pace. Dave Groves trying to hold off Jim Dandy for 2nd. Larry Kugel has his hands full with Doug Glesner for that 4th spot. Looking to the inside of Sean Davis, trying to take the front spot. Groves and Davis side by side down into 1. Jim Dandy trying to take the spot also. Groves takes the lead, Davis in 2nd, but Dandy tries to take 2nd away from Sean Davis. We've got Kenny Riddle getting around Rick Smith for the 6th spot. Glesner. Taking Sean Davis for the 2nd spot, but Davis fights back on the inside. Down into turn 1 and 2. They're side by side for 2nd. Groves stretching out his lead a little bit, but Jim Dandy and Sean Davis still fighting for 2nd. Davis takes the spot away. Looks to the inside. 119 diving into the pits. Jim Dandy taking over the 2nd spot, but Davis looks to the inside again. Davis and Dandy make contact on the back straightaway. Kugel takes over the 3rd spot. stretching out his lead as Jim Dandy connected with Kenny Riddle on the back straightaway. And the green, white, checkered. Green, white, checkered. Dave Groves, Sean Davis, Larry Kugel. Because we have exceeded the time limit, they will be given the green, white, checkered. Down the back straightaway, Dave Groves holding on to the point. Sean Davis, white flag in the air.
Green is out, a one-lap dash. Grove, your leader. Davis looks to the inside, but nothing there. Cool now making a charge on the outside down the back chute. Out of that final turn, your leader, Dave Groves. Too close to call for that second spot.
As he climbs out of the GRS house car, Dave Groves.
5Z of Dale Zuffall. 36. Out of turn 4, Scott Herring in the 28 machine on the point. Green is out, we're racing, and Vocek wastes no time. Down the back chute, it's Vocek in the 75, followed by Scott Herring in the 28, the 30 of Jim Schaefer, and Scott Spade, the 76S. And we got a pure stock sandwich on the front chute with Scott Spade, Jim Beyer, and John Redshaw. Spade gets a little squirrely, loses 2 spots. Your leader still Scott Vocek in the 75 machine. Herring goes high and loses that second spot for now to Jim Schaefer. Out of 2 down the back chute, your running order. Vocek, Schaefer, Herring, Beyer, Redshaw. Into turn 1, your leader still Scott Vocek. Running order, Vocek in the 75, the 30 of Jim Schaefer, Scott Herring in the 28 machine, the 36 of Jim Beyer, and John Redshaw from Farmington, PA. Green is out. Vocek, your leader. And Schaefer gets a little squirrely there coming out of 2, loses 2 spots right now with Redshaw knocking on the inside. Out of 2 down the back chute, your leader, the 75 of Scott Vocek, followed by Scott Herring, Jim Byers, John Redshaw, and Jim Schaefer. Vocek now by a third of a straightaway over Herring. And we got a little mix-up here between 1 and 2. Caution on the Raceway, the 20 of Lloyd Frazier, the 76S of Scott Spade, and the 123 of Jeff Kiesling involved. And Dale Wilt. Green is out. Into 1 and 2, your leader, Scott Vocek in the 75 machine. Down the back chute, it's Vocek, Herring, Beyer, Redshaw, and Schaefer. Your top 5, followed by Herring, Fema, Zufall, Wilt, and Medved, with Spade, Frazier, and Kiesling bringing up the rear. Caution on the Raceway. Out of 4. Green is out. Schaefer takes that 4 spot away from Redshaw. And Hogger now looking to the inside. Nothing there just at the moment. And Medved back through the pack looking to the inside of Dale Wilt. Down the back chute, your running order, 75, Scott Vocek, 28, Scott Herring, Jim Beyer in the 36, the 30 of Jim Schaefer, the 62 of John Redshaw, your top 5, as Redshaw takes a look to the inside of Schaefer coming out of 4. Nothing there as they come down the front chute. For that 3rd spot, the 30 of Jim Schaefer, the 36 of Jim Beyer, and John Redshaw also in the fray. Your leader, Scott Vocek. And Vocek and Herring pull away. Again, Redshaw looks to the inside of Byers for that 4 spot. Side by side down the back chute into 3. Caution on the Raceway. Coming out of 4 with Vocek on the point. Green is out. Scott Vocek, followed by Scott Herring, Markleysburg, Pennsylvania, Jim Schaefer, Jim Byers, John Redshaw. Here comes Hogger looking to the inside of Medved. Nothing doing. Scott Herring goes high. Way off the pace down the back chute.
Usually like 1,500
Caution on the Raceway. 28 car of Scott Herring way off the pace. And we're green again with Vocek, your leader. Down the back shoot your top 5. Scott Vocek, Jim Schaefer, Jim Byers, John Redshaw, and Bob Medved.
Is this thing close to being over yet?
And Redshaw taking that high line between 3 and 4. Still in that 4 spot.